Hello again. When Israel pulled out of Gaza entirely in 2005 and left it to become a self-governing territory or small nation, there were roughly 5,000 Christians living there, nearly all of them Arab. 80% of them have now left Gaza since it came under the control of Hamas. The picture is pretty similar in Bethlehem, the traditional birthplace of Jesus, which is in Judea, a short bus ride from Jerusalem. When Israel controlled the town, there were many Christians, and people used to go to and fro between Jerusalem and Bethlehem all the time to work or to visit the place. Since the Israeli withdrawal, an awful lot of Christians have left. In Israel itself, by way of contrast, there were in 2020 around 182,000 Christians, mainly in the north, for example, in Nazareth. 4 years later, the number has risen to 188,000. In other words, the Christian population, most of them Arab, in Israel, is rising. In every single other country and territory in the Middle East, the number of Christians is falling. In Israel alone is it rising. This is because Israel has always been favourably disposed towards Christians in the country, and also, by the way, to those in neighbouring countries. The current fighting in Lebanon reminds me of the time I was living near the border, and it was in those days known as the Good Fence. This was because Israel had such excellent relations with Lebanon that the border between Lebanon and Israel was practically open. This was in the days when large parts of Lebanon were Christian. In fact, it was regarded as a Christian country. It was known as the Switzerland of the Middle East. There was a ski resort on Mount Hermon, and a lot of Lebanese used to cross it to Israel every day to work. It was a marvellous, carefree time. Many also entered Israel because they were provided with free medical treatment at places like Western Galilee Hospital. A third of the people receiving ophthalmic treatment at Western Galilee Hospital in the 1970s were Lebanese. Who remembers the good fence these days and the friendly relations between the Lebanese Christians and Israel? Hardly anybody. What about the SLA, the South Lebanon Army under Major Haddad? Anybody? Is anybody watching this aware that during the Jerusalem March in 1980, the biggest cheers from the Israeli crowd was for a unit of the Lebanese army who paraded alongside the Israeli army? Of course not. It was a very special time to see the Lebanese flag flying in Jerusalem. The reason for the good position of Christians in Israel and the reason why many Christians would rather live there than in Gaza or Bethlehem is that Judaism is not a proselytizing religion. Not only do they not seek converts, they actively discourage them. Anybody who has tried to convert to Judaism will know this. It's in sharp contrast to Islam, whose members regard Christians as kuffars or unbelievers and make life difficult for them in Muslim countries by imposing extra taxes and treating them unfavourably in the hope that they can be persuaded to embrace Islam. This is why 80% of the Christians in Gaza fled when Hamas took control there. It is why Lebanon is no longer a Christian country, because of the influence first of Fatah and more lately Hezbollah. Talking of Lebanon, the outrage which is greeting the Israeli invasion currently is marvellous when compared with the reaction to the Syrian invasion in 1976. This hardly rated a mention in the international press. I doubt that most viewers even knew that Syria invaded Lebanon and that there was a great deal of fighting and some terrible deaths and sieges of refugee camps and so on. There is something deliciously ironic about the fact that the only part of the Middle East where Christianity is flourishing, and indeed growing, is the Jewish state. It is especially ironic when you remember that nearly all those Christians are Arabs, and that they have a much better deal in Israel than they do in Arab countries among people of their own ethnicity. It's worth asking countries like Syria what happened to all their Christians and Jews. The answer is they sought sanctuary in Israel. It's also worth asking the Lebanese where their Christians were most favourably received when they were in difficulty. Once again, the answer is Israel.